Welcome to the third and final part in my three-part history of the DC Extended Universe series. If you haven't seen the first two parts, check them out. Part 1 talks about early attempts to kickstart a DC cinematic universe, including George Miller's canceled Justice League Mortal. In last episode, I talked about Zack Snyder and David S. Goyer's early plans at constructing the DCEU. Today, however, I'll be talking about how all of that went down the shitter. Contrary to popular belief, Justice League wasn't really what killed the DCEU, at least not from my perspective. That was Batman v Superman. While not nearly to the extent of Justice League, there were some behind-the-scenes difficulties with BVS, mainly regarding the script. So far, I've referred to David S. Goyer as the one tasked with writing BVS, but if you watch the movie, you'll notice that there are two writers, David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio. So what happened? Well, I'll give you a hint. David S. Goyer didn't write his script with Chris Terrio. Apparently, while David S. Goyer was originally the sole writer of the movie, Warner Brothers wasn't satisfied with his script for one reason or another. Goyer ended up leaving the film due to creative differences, and WB hired Chris Terrio to rewrite his script to their specification. This was kind of a big deal, considering that at this point, Goyer and Snyder were the main architects of the DCEU. So now it was just Zack Snyder, though Terrio would end up taking Goyer's place in a sense. Something interesting to note is that even though we know that David S. Goyer did some writing on Justice League, even the Snyder Cut doesn't credit him as a writer. This wouldn't be such a big deal if Will Beall didn't get a story credit. So, either few or none of Goyer's ideas were actually used in the script for Justice League, or the breakup between him and WB was ugly enough that either his name was removed from the movie by WB, or he asked for his name to be removed from the movie. Anyway, Batman v Superman didn't just have an interesting behind-the-scenes issue, it also gave near irreversible damage to the DCEU. Basically, BVS was made on a budget of $250 million, and if you double that, because movie budgets don't include marketing budget, and generally they spend just as much marketing the movie as they do making it, it cost WB $500 million. Its box office gross was a little more than $800 million, so it actually brought in $300 million of profit. That's not a small amount of money. But this was the first time Batman and Superman were ever together on theater screens, and Wonder Woman and Lex Luthor were there too. So WB expected this movie to bring in $1 billion easy. It should have made WB at least $500 million profit. So it didn't meet expectations. At the same time BVS came out, so did Deadpool. Deadpool was made on a budget of $75 million, and to be fair, that definitely had more than $75 million in marketing, so let's say with the marketing it cost $200 to $250 million. Deadpool grossed $700 million, so it profited $450 to $500 million, or around what WB wanted BVS to make. This was a point of reflection for WB. It had made BVS in a more artistic, unconventional way than Marvel generally did things, under the pretenses that if they were different from Marvel, that would help them stand out and make money. But that clearly didn't work, so they needed course correction. They decided that there were essentially two types of superhero movies: Avengers movies and Deadpool movies. Any movie that could be a family-friendly movie would be a family movie with a balance of action and humor, like most of the MCU movies. Any movie that didn't have the potential to be an Avengers movie had to be violent and quippy, like Deadpool. Let's talk about what was going on in the DCEU at this point. Suicide Squad had just finished its principal photography at the end of 2015, though reshoots hadn't started. Wonder Woman was currently filming, wrapping up its main stretch of filming in London before it would spend a small amount of time filming in Paris, and then some time filming in Italy before taking a break and coming back to reshoot. Justice League was in pre-production, and the plan was essentially a few months after BVS came out, they would film Justice League 1 and 2 back-to-back for release in 2017 and 2019 respectively. With the announcement of a two-part movie and the back-to-back filming, it would make it much more of a surprise for Justice League Part 2 to end on a cliffhanger. After the film was released in mid-2019, they would announce Justice League Part 3, which would begin production ASAP. Maybe it would have come out in mid-2021, though it's possible that since David S. Goyer had been heavily involved in the planned Green Lantern Corps movie, that movie would be put on hold and Justice League Part 3 could take its spot on the release schedule. However, the reactions to BVS changed everything. While Wonder Woman was already a very Marvel-like movie in many ways, Suicide Squad was supposed to be a dark, soulful movie, and Justice League, which again was about to start filming, was supposed to be a similar, if less dark, BVS. So there was course correction to be done. This is why the Warner Brothers subsidiary DC Films was created, to focus efforts on correcting the DCEU. Chief Creative Officer of DC Entertainment, Jeff Johns, was named President of DC Films, and producer John Berg was named Vice President, though they would both step down not long after Justice League came out. So essentially, Jeff Johns' job was to rewrite the scripts for Suicide Squad and Justice League to better conform with what Warner Brothers executive Kevin Tsujihara, specifically, but also others, wanted for the franchise, along with helping to write and develop future DC movies to work with these guidelines. In the case of Suicide Squad, that meant rewriting it to be more like Deadpool in time for reshoots, which allegedly resulted in an inferior cut to what writer and director David Ayer originally wanted, though the Ayer cut has not been released, so until it does we have no way of really being sure. As for Justice League, that was a little more complicated. Chris Terrio's Justice League script had already been written and filming was about to begin, with no time for Jeff Johns to rewrite the script prior to filming. The decision was made to put filming for Justice League 2 on hold and just film Justice League 1, which was now renamed from Justice League Part 1 to just Justice League. Because there was no time to rewrite prior to filming, the set environment for Justice League initially was essentially Zack Snyder would be shooting the original script, with Jeff Johns being in the back rewriting the script to WB specifications, handing pages to Zack Snyder to film, with DC essentially filming two movies at once. At this point, the script for Ben Affleck's Batman movie was getting along, and it was thought that right after filming was done on Justice League, they would use the resources they would have used on Justice League 2 to film The Batman, especially given that it acted almost as a Justice League 1.5, with a post-credit scene even being filmed for Justice League to set up Deathstroke, a minor villain of Justice League, to be the main villain of The Batman. However, filming kept getting pushed back due to script problems as well as personal problems with Ben Affleck. Deathstroke would end up being cut out of Justice League anyway, so the film was put on hold and eventually evolved into what it is now, a standalone movie not in the DCEU. But back to Justice League. By the time principal photography had taken place, Warner Brothers still thought the movie wasn't mainstream enough. They apparently had a writers' summit with a bunch of comic book movie writers who watched what they had so far and gave their thoughts. One of these was Joss Whedon, and Warner Brothers ended up hiring him to further rewrite the script with Jeff Johns for reshoots. Between principal photography and reshoots, Zack Snyder worked on post-production on the movie and put together an assembly cut of the movie based on the original script, but then, unfortunately, Autumn, one of Zack Snyder's daughters, tragically committed suicide, so Snyder had to leave Justice League to mourn this loss. But of course, Warner Brothers still needed to finish this movie, so Joss Whedon was hired to direct the reshoots. It was at this point that things got out of hand. Zack Snyder had been fighting back against Warner Brothers' decisions at the time, constantly compromising with them so that everyone would be happy, and has gone on the record saying that Jeff Johns' initial rewrites during principal photography were understandable and didn't really cripple the film. But once Zack was gone, Warner just went hog wild on this movie. Production on the reshoots was a level of hell I can't begin to describe. Ray Fisher has since come out and said that Joss Whedon was very abusive on the set of Justice League. While you could argue he was under intense pressure from WB, that's not really an excuse, and since then, the situation has been investigated, and Warner Brothers found him guilty, firing him from a recent project with them. Ray Fisher also stated that Jeff Johns and John Berg also enabled and maybe even participated in this abusive and sometimes racist behavior, though Warner Brothers has repeatedly said that in their investigation they found no evidence of this. Ray Fisher has of course said they're lying, but right now we really don't know for sure who's telling the truth. As much as I'm not here to defend Joss Whedon as a person, those who say that he ruined Justice League aren't really right. Justice League isn't a Joss Whedon movie. It's a Warner Brothers movie. It has some Snyder, some Johns, some Whedon, some Sujihara, and some of every WB exec at the time Frankensteined into the movie. So in a way, there's no real way for Zack Snyder's Justice League to possibly be worse than the theatrical cut, if for no other reason than that it has a vision to it. Though I will say that for those of you Snyder nuts out there, don't watch the Snyder Cut expecting it to be what you would have seen in theaters if he had remained in control. First of all, it's 4 hours long. If this had been released theatrically, it would have been about 3 hours. Also, there was additional filming for the Snyder Cut, including some stuff that Snyder actually came up with in the intervening years since he left the project. And finally, this is based on the Terrio script, and the best we could have gotten theatrically would have been the Terrio John script. But at the same time, it really will be his nearly uncompromised vision of the movie. So enjoy it. Even if you didn't like Watchmen, Man of Steel, or BVS, go into this wanting to like it, man, you might. Really, the lesson is just to be nice to other people's viewpoints, whether you like it or not. That goes for Snyder's superfans too. And if you don't have HBO Max and want to avoid spoilers, then you should probably move. After all, we live in a society where spoilers run rampant. I hope you like this little series, and if you did, subscribe because there might be something coming to your subscription box very soon that I think you'll really like. And I don't just mean the same day Snyder Cut review. So, don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.